I've said it before and I'll say it again. The convention scene hasn't been very friendly towards any sort of discussion about ethics in journalism, whether it be in games journalism, comics journalism, or whatever have you. And it's been a real bummer of a thing to behold because while SJWs get their panels, they get all their fancy schmancy attention, the people representing the other side, the people representing the counter voices to this, are more often than not just called racist, sexist, bigoted assholes and thrown out on their faces where they even discussing it is some kind of security threat. And I mean, I've discussed it before. There's a deeper conversation to be had about that specific point. But the most comfortable environment where this dialogue could have ever taken place and could take place is really in a panel discussion where there's a moderator, there's security, there's all sorts of protection and procedure to make sure things don't go haywire. And San Diego Comic-Con 2015 might be one of the first revolutionary conferences to allow the discussion to happen. Along with the abysmal SJW programming that we've all come to expect and that we really can't stop, there's this very interesting panel that has popped up and kind of taken me and several others by surprise. Now, it's called Comics Journalism. It's about ethics in comics journalism. And despite the redundant title, it has an interesting description. Charlie Hebdo, Gamergate, cheesecake covers, and Hugo Award ethics have become one of the hottest issues in pop culture today. And fandoms have converged on comic news sites as a battleground for debating who should win the culture wars. The Beat's Heidi MacDonald, comicbook.com's James Viscardi, CBR's Joe Ildage, and other leading comic journalists discuss what, if any, ethical principles should shape news stories affecting the comic community. Attorney and ethics professor James Trexler moderates. And like I said, this is very peculiar of a panel in several different ways. Number one, it mentions Gamergate, and it sounds like it's going to be covering a lot of what Gamergate has said, only with the comic book lens. And this is absolutely fine if you ask me. It's absolutely supportable if it still brings the points, because really, you can interchange any amount of industries within this analogy and still have the overall picture work. However, there is a bit of a daunting element to this because we don't know who any of these people are. Deep Freeze doesn't have any info on them. We haven't heard of them or their sites before. These are really a bunch of nobodies, and I hate to use that term, discussing these issues, and while that's probably how they got accepted in the first place, it also means that we don't know where this is going to go. However, there are a few things that are certain. Number one, this is going to be the biggest event for discussion that we have so far. Bigger than the SJP, bigger than the random interviews that you hear online. This is going to be a live public event where the issues that Gamergate covers is brought up. And really, regardless of how this turns out, it may play towards our favor, it may not play towards our favor, it's still something that we have a role in. If it comes to the conclusion that there are ethical reforms needed and that there are a set of ethical guidelines that need to be followed, you can bet your ass that they're going to get attacked, and when they are attacked, they're going to need some help, which is where Gamergate can come in and kind of throw some, smattering of applause or whatever anytime they say something good. If it isn't in our favor, however, we still have a very important role to play in being the critical counter voice to the entire discussion. And yes, we know what happened with Calgary Expo. However, Comic-Con and San Diego is a different beast. And the fact that this is happening, I think, is a good sign that we're going to see a allowance of dissent against any kind of narrative put out there either way. I sincerely hope this is the case, and if it isn't the case, well, the worst that can happen is that San Diego Comic-Con looks like an idiot. And that's the last thing they need, given their size and given how comparable they are to the Calgary Expo in ways of popularity and so forth. But really, that's all there is to say about this. It's an odd panel out that has some odd speakers that discusses the topics that we have been fighting about for months. And I really do think that this needs support. Right now, there's only 22 confirmed attendance to this thing, and that number should be a lot higher. So for anyone who is going to the convention, this is happening Thursday, July 9th from 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. in room 24 ABC from wherever the convention center is that San Diego Comic-Con is being held. If I can make one recommendation, this is the one panel you should consider going to this year. This has been Robert Stoll, the Stoll Review, wishing you all a nice day.